I want to spend this session looking at the subject of trend lines. I use trend lines a lot in my trading. I find that it helps to give visual perspective in terms of what's happening with the price and the direction that it's heading in. The chart that we're looking at the moment is Euro GBP. I like trend lines because I find that they're a lot less discretionary than drawing horizontal support and resistance levels, and the reason for that is that when any number of traders are looking at a chart, if we just look at this wave which I've charted here, regardless of how those trend lines are being joined and the points at which they're being connected from, it's near on impossible. It's not near on impossible, it is impossible that you would end up drawing a trend line facing the opposite direction to the one that I've drawn here. And with a trend line, what matters is the direction of that trend line. The secret is in the word really, because what that line is doing is defining the direction of the trend. I'm asked a lot specifically about the way I draw trend lines, and sometimes it's been described as a little bit unorthodox, and I'll just say maybe a couple of points. The first thing is that when I'm drawing trend lines, what I'm usually doing is force fitting the trend lines on top of the price, rather than trying to fit the price inside of my trend lines. And the reason that I do that is that I'm trying to identify channels. Sometimes I'm trying to identify channels before they've completed forming, and the reason for that is that within a channel, price tends to move in a structured manner from the upper part of the channel to the lower part of the channel, and then that provides a number of trading opportunities which we can take advantage of. I don't really want to talk at the moment to spend this session talking about how we would enter or exit trades using channels or trend lines. Just want to give a kind of guide or introduction to the subject and just demonstrate its usefulness in terms of gaining perspective on price movement itself. Sometimes when you're drawing these trend lines, you end up discovering some interesting relationships, and you start identifying the way that price behaves around trend lines. And so if we're looking here at the Euro GBP, the price was really all week. You can see that the price has been tanking. The price fell almost 134 pips this week on Euro GBP, despite the fact that there's a positive carry on that trade, which became just a little bit more significant since the ECB announcement last week. But the price came to a stop here at that 87.50 area, and one of the things that we notice is that if we had just connected the lower trend lines, then there's a possibility that we could have identified that 87.50 is a price that we don't want to be selling at. Now that's important because there's a downtrend here, and just because there's a downtrend doesn't mean that although from a technical perspective you'd rather be a seller than a buyer in a downtrend, but it doesn't mean that you're good to sell at every single price. And sometimes trend lines they make very good targets for the sellers, and you'd expect the sellers to be exiting at that price, especially if this is forming into a channel, and then the usual rules of price movement within a channel come into play. So if this is going to be a down channel, then you'd expect the sellers to kick in at the top end of that channel, and you'd expect for the sellers to be exiting at the bottom end of the channel, and sometimes you'd expect buyers to be kicking in at the bottom end of the channel. If we just flick through a few charts, we can see a few more interesting relationships. So for example, here's a chart of Kiwi It's the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar, and this morning the price fell to 81.06 region, and it gave a good 110 pip bounce from that area. Now, using a trend line, would it be possible that we could identify that area that the price is going to come to a halt there, or maybe we can find some kind of relationship that would help us identify it. So if I zoom in, you'll be able to see what I've done, which is that I connected a trend line just using these two lower points here. I've copied that trend line to the low of that candle there, and if we look, surprise, surprise, the price came and stopped exactly at that trend line. It's where the brakes went on, and where the buyers seem to have kicked in. If we're looking at a chart of Pound Swissy, again, it's an interesting chart. Over the last few months there's been a very significant downtrend which has been in play. I think it's given up almost 1,500 pips over the last couple of months. Almost every other week we've been hitting fresh lows on this, all-time record lows. This morning the price breached the previous low, which was at that 32.50, 32.60 level, and it came to a halt here at 31.54. Now, is there any way that we could have known that this would make a target for the price? Maybe we could use a trend line to try and identify the relationship, and if I connect this trend line here, we can see where the breaks came on, and so perhaps this trend line is going to be significant as the price falls. Maybe it's even possible that we can construct a channel. Out of it. And sometimes what I do is I draw multiple trend lines on a chart, and I'll watch how the price reacts around these levels. If I find that the price is just zigzagging through it, then I'll end up removing that because it doesn't really have any significance. Other times you'll see a trend line acting in a manner where it's giving support or resistance, and I'll be more alert and more aware of that. So that's the way that I play with the trend lines. That's how I construct them, and it's always a useful exercise to do. It's something, playing with trend lines, it's something that can be back tested, and you find an interesting relationship, and then you try to forward engineer that trend line in the future, and try and see if you get a reaction, if you get a reaction to price at that particular point. And here's another example on Euro GBP. If we had connected these highs here, we can see yesterday when the price stalled at that 88 level, it stalled pretty much on that trend line, and so it's always useful, worth having a play with. I hope you found this presentation useful. In the next session we'll start looking at how we can trade in and around these trend lines, so I look forward to seeing you then.